This is the fourth in a series of talks given by Krishnamurti in Ojai, California. Jiddu Krishnamurti is regarded internationally as one of the great teachers and philosophers of all time. For some 60 years, he has been traveling throughout the world giving public talks to increasingly large audiences. He has published over 30 books and founded schools in the United States, England, and India.
This is the last talk or conversation between two friends. We have been talking during the last 3 talks various aspects of life. We said how important it is to have the capacity to doubt, to question everything that is taking place in the world, not only externally, but also inwardly. All our thoughts, our feelings. If one is aware of one's own illusions, to question all those. Because skepticism without cynicism has a great beneficial effect. Our brains are programmed for 2000 years, according to the Christian world, and the Hindus and the Buddhists 3,000 to 5,000 years. They have been programmed like a computer. Catholics, Americans, Russians, believers, non-believers, specialists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists and so on, scientists, doctors, who have been programmed. And of that there is no doubt about it. Because this programming has resulted in our being conditioned. And unless we question, doubt, have great deal of sane skepticism, the brain can never be free. And freedom and to be free are 2 different things, if we may go into all that. So, what is it to be free? Freedom is from something. Freedom from our own misery, from our own troubles and problems, free to have an economic society that's providing for all human beings, a society that is not too corrupt, and so on. Freedom from our own bondage, from our own peculiar tendencies, opinions, and judgments, in which most of us are entangled. Opinion, judgment, conclusion is so strong with each one of us. And that prevents perception, seeing clearly what is going on in the world, both externally, outwardly, and much more so inwardly, the whole psychological complexity of one's own life. So, what is it to be free? Not freedom from something, which is then becomes a reaction. Freedom from capitalism has led to totalitarianism, with all its misery and brutality. And freedom from our own particular fears is still in the area of a reaction. Oh, if one is free, had freedom from some peculiar urge or tendency, one could be so great and so on. Whereas to be free is something entirely different. The word free comes from, though etymologically it's not very clearly established, free, to be free, implies in that word love, amongst other meanings. Because we do not really comprehend in our own life what it is to love. And if love is the opposite of hate, if love is the opposite of jealousy, or if love is the opposite of attachment, every opposite has its roots in its own opposite. Are we understanding this? If one is greedy, as most of us are, and the urge not to be greedy, that contradiction is born out of one's own greed. Do you understand? Is this somewhat clear? The word free, to be free, has many meanings, but mostly free means to be a friend, to love. And love is not something that the thought can evolve, put together, and or can be cultivated. It's not. You can cultivate a garden. You can cultivate anything, to plow, to cultivate, to grow. But love is not something that thought can cultivate. So it's very, very important to understand altogether very deeply the nature of thought, thinking. If we really could understand that fundamentally, then we shall have able to resolve most of our problems. Because we have dozens of problems of relationship, economic problems, social problems, problems of every kind. Human beings are burdened with them. So it not only to understand the nature of freedom from something and to be free, completely free, not from something. And is that possible at all when thought is operating all the time? You understand my question? As long as we are programmed, Catholic, Protestant, and there are many thousand divisions of Protestantism, or Hinduism and Islamic world and Buddhist world. We are being programmed. And as long as we are being programmed, our whole brain is being programmed for thousands of years, there can be no a sense of total free. Is this clear? Are we together in this? So, is it possible to be free? Or must we everlastingly be condemned to be programmed, like a computer? Our brain functions, not that the speaker is a professional brain specialist, but he has observed many, in the course of many 60, 70 years, how the people's brain work, observing them, and also observing one's own brain in operation. It has become so mechanical, repetitive. Its very accumulation of knowledge is limiting it. I wonder if you understand this. When one has a great deal of knowledge about various disciplines like science, being an expert in surgery, medicine, telecommunication and so on, our brain actually becomes very small. It can expand along a particular line, but that expansion still is limited. I hope you're getting all this. Now, is it possible to be totally be free from all this? Otherwise, we'll never know what it is to be creative. Something totally unthought of, totally new. There is nothing new on the earth. But if we accept that slogan, then we'll never find out what it is to be creative. Measurement implies thought. Thought is based on knowledge, experience, and memory. And knowledge is always limited, now and in the future. So thought is always limited. It can imagine the immeasurable. It can invent all the gods on the earth, all the rituals, all that business, which is all extraordinarily unreal. So, thought can never be free, or thought can never bring about a sense of being totally free. Right? I wonder if you understand this. Because thought itself is limited. Therefore, whatever it does will still be limited. And thought is driven by desire. Isn't it? Right? So we have to inquire into the nature and the structure of desire. Word desire means longing for, an expression which is wanting something more. Desire is the meaning of that word is that, longing for. Not having, wanting. Right? So we're going together understand what is desire. You don't know, one does not, I do not know if you have observed not only yourself, but all the people around you. The priests, the hierarchy of priests, the popes through history, and all the monks of the world, and all the human beings in the world are being dissatisfied with what they are. They want something more, longing for something more. Aren't you all longing for something more? Aren't we all driven by desire? To be successful, to have money, to have position, famous, you know, all that business. We are full of desires. And what is the relationship between desire and thought? Right? Please ask this question of ours as two friends are talking together. The speaker is saying to the friend, look at it. He's asking, what is the relationship between the two, desire and thought? Why thought in the religious area has insisted on suppression of desire? You understand? The monks throughout the world have said you must have no desire, suppress it, or identify the desire with something you call God, your Savior, your, you know, symbols. Right? So desire has an extraordinary importance in our life. And we are not trying to suppress it or transcend it or identify that desire with something nobler, symbolic, significance, all that stuff. We can wipe out all that. So we are now trying to understand the nature of desire. You might have heard the speaker explain it before, but forget what he has said before. We are now afresh, anew, examining the thing. And to examine, there must not only be free from personal worship, and also there must be freedom from the fear of not being without desire. You understand? There must be a sense of perception in which there is no distortion, no motive, but to observe very closely the whole movement of desire. Yeah? Can we go on with that? We are sitting under a tree, under several trees, and there is the blue sky through the leaves, and the distant mountains, hills, the dappled light on all of us, And to see all this clearly, and to see the beauty of all that, and what is the relationship of beauty to desire. You understand all that? We are asking, what is beauty? A beautiful poem, a beautiful picture, a beautiful tree in a solitary field, the beauty of a wave, the quiet beauty of a blue sea, and the beauty of great mountains, the immensity, their dignity, their immovability, and their lying against the blue sky, snow-capped. Is beauty a matter of instruction? Being well informed about all the paintings of the world, who painted it, from the modern Picasso to the ancient Masaccio and so on. To be well informed, to talk about it, to be, play with it. Is all that beauty? So what is beauty? When do you perceive beauty? In the face, in the mountain, in a tree, or the slip of a moon, and the first moon appears just a sliver, and the quietness of a still evening. When do you perceive all this? And the word beauty seems to suffice for most of us, just to say how beautiful it is, and go on to the next thing. When you see a great mountain, the deep valleys and the snow against the blue sky, aren't you for a second, by the dignity, the majesty of the mountain, for a second you have forgotten all your problems. You have forgotten all your misery, confusion, sorrows, and all the rest of it. And that great immensity of a snow-capped peak drives you away, drives yourself away, right? Haven't you noticed all this? So, beauty can only exist when the self is not. You understand? When the mind, when the brain is not chattering, caught in a net of words, when it is really utterly quiet, totally, when there is total absence of the me, the self, the ego, the persona, then you really see extraordinary sense of beauty of the world, of the tree and the sky. And what is the relationship of that sense of extraordinary beauty to desire? We want to capture that beauty. We wanted to hold it, to live with it, to have this sense of utter, to be totally free from all the turmoil, the noise, and the vulgarity of the world. So we must inquire, rationally, clearly and sanely, what is desire? When you sit under this tree, these trees, and look at the beauty of the light, and though it's somewhat hot, unfortunately, you have a great sense of sensation, don't you? A sense, your senses are awake if you are alert. Your senses respond to all this. So the sensation of these trees, the light, the hills, the quietness, awakens sensation. When you see the Pacific as you go along this highway, can you look at all that water with all your senses? Have you ever done it? With all your senses fully alive, alert. Then, in that total sensation, with all your senses, not partially, one operating more than the other, but the whole organism, the nerves, the whole entity of the human, when you give such tremendous attention with your sensation, have you noticed there is no self at all? There is no me at all. We'll come to that presently. So, we live with sensations. Very obvious. These sensations are taken over by thought and given a shape or an image. Right? So the question is, giving shape to that sensation by thought, as an image, as a picture, as pleasure, at that second, desire is born. Now the question is, can there be a wide interval between sensation and thought creating an image of that sensation? You understand? An interval. That requires tremendous attention, and where there is attention, there is discipline. You understand? Oh, come on, sir, somebody. Are you all asleep or what? This is important because as we live in conflict perpetually, to understand conflict is to see that the fact and the conclusion of the fact, the fact, and what we make of that fact. What we make of that fact is an abstraction called idea or ideal. And between the fact and the ideal, there's always conflict. Right? And if we see where there is sensation, which is natural, which is healthy, clear, unless one is totally paralyzed, and thought giving shape to that sensation, the image to that sensation. You understand? If these two can be kept apart for a while, to keep it apart requires great attention. Right? And so that there is never a suppression of desire, but watchfulness of desire. I wonder if you understand this. Because if you suppress it, it then becomes a conflict. If you say, I transcend desire, that becomes also a means of conflict. Whereas there is great attention and watchfulness, how thought shapes sensation, then that attention, that watchfulness has its own intelligence, and there is, when it's necessary, you go into the shop and buy it and get on with it, but not make conflict about it. You understand? No, if you understand some of it at least. Because this is really important to understand all this. Whether man can live without conflict on this beautiful earth. We have lived with conflict all the days of our lives, from the most ancient of times till now. It's our heritage to live with conflict. Not only externally was war and so on, but also much more inwardly. Conflict with each other, conflict in our relationship with each other, intimate and so on. Whether this conflict can ever end, so that the brain is totally free. And that's why it's important to understand the nature of desire. And the nature of this sense of immense beauty of life, of this earth. Then we also should go into the question of what is love. Love apparently has become another means of conflict. One loves one's wife, and there's conflict, there's quarrels, jealousies, antagonism, divorce, and all the pain of that relationship, and the pleasure of it too. So we should go into this question very carefully, because that may be the solution of all our problems. It may be the one thing, when we understand, whether it is in the brain or outside the brain. Understand my question? Whether love is contained in the brain as thought, anxiety, pain, depression, fear, loneliness, the whole content of our consciousness. Is love part of that consciousness? You understand? Come on, sir. Or it's outside, totally. Outside consciousness, outside the brain. Probably you've never asked the question. One hopes you will not mind asking these questions. So what is love as we know it? Love brings a great deal of conflict in our life, a great deal of pleasure, a great deal of anxiety, fear, jealousy. envy. Don't you know all this? So what is desire love? Is pleasure love? Is love in the realm or in the field of thought? And apparently, for most of us, it is in that field, love of conflict, pain, anxiety, and thought. And to understand what love is, I'm not understand, have the depth of it, the greatness of it, the flame of it, the beauty of it. How can there be jealousy? How can there be ambition? Aggression, violence? And can one be free completely of all these things? Please do ask this question. Where there is love, then there is, do what you will, it will be right action. It will never bring conflict in one's life. So it's important to see that jealousy, antagonism, conflict, and all the pain of relationship has no place in love, where there is love. And can one be free of all that? Not tomorrow, now. You understand my question? Because as we pointed out yesterday, time, which is the past, the present and the future, all time is contained in the now. We went into it carefully yesterday. And if we say, I will cultivate love, or I will try and get rid of my jealousy and so on, then when you are trying to be free, then you will never be free. Right? I wonder if you understand this. When you say, I will do my best, which is so silly. Which means that one has really not fully perceived the truth that all time, the past, the present, and the future are in the now, in present, actually. Because if you don't do something now, it will be continued tomorrow. The future is in the now. You understand this? Come on. So, can one put aside completely all the causes of conflict, which is the self, the me, so that there is this sense of flame, the greatness of beauty, love? And also we should discuss, if time allows.
It's 12:30.
My gosh. We should talk over together, what is religion? Most of us live in illusions about religions. We never see that thought has been responsible for all the rituals, their dresses and their gods and their ceremonies, their incense and whole works is put together by thought. So what is religion? And this thing is important to find out. But man has always, from the beginning of time, has always inquired into this. Is there something more than the mere physical world with all its turmoil, with all its complexities and struggle, pain, and so on? Is there something far beyond all this? You are asking that question. And somebody comes along and says, I know about it, I'll tell you all about it. That's how it began. From the ancient Sumerians, from the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Hindus, they said, we will tell you. They became the priests. They were the original people who wrote, read, and so on. They became the interpreters of that to man. And it became a good profession, like any other profession. And that has continued from the time immemorial. Now, to find out what is the religious mind, what is the truth of religion, one must be free from all authority of all belief, faith, not belong to a thing. Right? There must be sense of total being free. Then one can inquire or observe or perceive what is truth. Not the truth or the reality. Let's differentiate the two. Gosh, a lot of things to explain in there. I don't know why one has to explain all this. I'm afraid you're all too learned. You have too much knowledge. You've read too many books, or listened to professors and all the rest of it. What is reality? Reality is that you're sitting there and the speaker is up here. The reality is the trees. The reality is the nature, the birds, the ocean, the whales, the beauty of those enormous creatures in the deep depth of the sea. Reality is what is both externally and inwardly. Right? Nature is a reality, tiger is a reality. And also, reality is inwardly the illusion that you have created, and hold on to that. The symbol, the picture, the idealized picture, however illusory, you hold on to that. That's a reality, right? So reality and truth are two different things. Truth is not a matter of conjecture, of speculation. of idealization is not the invention of thought. And to find that not to find, for that truth to exist, it has been said, you must meditate to find that eternal thing which is beyond all measure and beyond all thought, beyond all words. You must meditate. And they said too, in order to meditate, you must follow a system, a method. And we will tell you what the method and the system is. Right? The gurus have played upon this theme endlessly, coining money. Right? So we are going to inquire not how to meditate, which seems so silly to ask, but what is meditation? Why is it necessary to meditate at all? Meditation, the meaning of that word is to ponder over, think over. But also it has also a deeper meaning. Measure. To meditate also means to measure. Now, meditation is the freedom, being free completely from measurement. Measurement being comparison. Well, I am this, I will be that, to compare. To live daily life without a shred of comparison. Have you ever done it? No. This is to live like that, never having an example, never a goal, never an end, never having the future, which is comparison. I am this, I will be that. To live without becoming, which is comparison. Is this possible? Can one live that way? Never comparing. See what happens if you don't compare. There is the end of conflict also. Right? So meditation is not a practice, not a system, not repeating a mantra. You know that word? You know the meaning of that word? No, but you repeat it. Most marvelous country. The meaning of that word, mantra, means ponder over, not becoming. And also it means end all self-centered activity. The root meaning of that word in Sanskrit, ponder, consider, not becoming, the whole question of becoming. And also it means put away altogether all self-centered activity. And if you are given some words and you repeat it, you are playing just a game. It's not worth it. The speaker is not telling you not to do it. If you want to do it, you will do it, if it pleases you, but it has no meaning. Your repetition, Ave Maria by the dozen, or some your particular mantra. So, meditation means to be free from fear, from all sense of conflict which we have been talking about, and also, much more seriously, the ending of thought. Whether thought, which is time, has a stop. You understand? And so, because if there isn't sense of being totally free, the brain then becomes limited, and all its activity will be limited, and the limitless, the timeless, can never be seen, can never exist. So we're asking, can thought, which is of time, which is time itself, can that stop? Probably you've never asked this question. Not you stop it by will. Of course, that's silly. You cannot stop by will thought. Will is the essence of desire. And desire, as we explained earlier. So, is there the thought coming of its own accord an end? Thought must be used naturally when you drive a car, when you go from here to your house, when you cook, when you wash dishes, and so on. Thought must be there. What is the necessity of thought in the psychological world at all? If thought is really understood, all its activities, its beginning, its origin. We said origin is experience, knowledge, memory stored in the brain, and the reaction to that memory is thought. All this process is limited, because knowledge in the future or now is limited. When you see, perceive actually the limitation of thought, not the imagination of it, not the idea of ending, but actually see for yourself that thought, whatever it does, both in the technological world and in the psychological world, will always be limited. When you see the absolute fact of that, and the necessity of thought in a certain area, when you give your total attention to that, then you will find out for yourself, thought can end. If we say, what then? Then you're lost. Then if you say, what is there, thought ends, is there something more? You follow how our brain works? That is, I will see that thought can end if you give me something in return, right? There is, if thought can end, you'll find out there'll be something totally different. And this is meditation, not control, not control thought. Because the controller is part of thought, right? So the controller is playing a game. So there's always the controller trying to control thought. But the controller, who is also thought, is the controlled. There is no division between the controller and the controlled. Right through life, if you want to understand this profoundly, you will eliminate altogether conflict. Therefore the brain, which has been conditioned, narrowed down, has lost its tremendous vitality. Its great, immense capacity. If one is active that way, as you get older and older, it becomes much more active. Not that you get senile. You understand all this? So meditation is something to be totally free from all bondage, from all measurement, from all conflict. So the brain becomes quiet, utterly still. And that silence, stillness has its own beauty, its own truth, its absolute sense of immeasurable thing. So meditation is not a reward, is not something that you get illumined by practicing, which are all so childish. So truth is something which is not to be measured, and it has no path to it. And that is beauty, that is love.
For information, write the Krishnamurti Foundation of America, Box 216, Ojai, California, 93023.